All right, guys, welcome back to TCI headquarters. It is time for our Tiger Talk edition. Unfortunately, our Tiger Talks this year have been tougher.
They've been tougher talks.
Not what we're used to. Talking about these great performances and coaches and players talking about a great victory. And, you know, for the third time this season, it was players and coaches talking about a game that Clemson absolutely should have won. And hearing a lot of talk about the reasons they didn't win.
Yep.
And it all starts for Dabo, and he emphasized that again today, and obviously, you know, turnovers.
Yeah, and he's not wrong. I mean, look at this game in particular. You take away that first turnover, which would have been a touchdown. That takes away 7 points of Miami. If he gives Clemson 7, so that's a 14-point swing, right? And then you got the second fumble, which was would have been 3 more points at least, right? Because you were moving the football, you were inside the 30-yard line when he fumbles. So it's another turnover, you kill a potential scoring drive. Then you had an interception that they throw later on that killed field position, where if he throws that away, Clemson punts Miami deep. Now maybe it's a different situation at the end of the first half than it was, and maybe potential points there. But the way I figured it, Robert, Clemson should have led 27-0 going into the fourth quarter, because it was they scored 17 points after Miami went up 7-0. So if you added 7 points and the field goal, that would have been those 2 fumbles.
That's a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda.
That's 27 points, but that's the difference in the game. I mean, that's why they lost it.
I know, but to me, one thing I think that's being missed in all of Clemson's excuses is Clemson played a team that had a quarterback starting their game for the first time.
Yeah, and he was slow.
It should not have come down to overtime. It should not have come down to any of that.
And
it should have been, Clemson should have won that game easily.
Should have won it easily.
Should have won that easily, so you can say it was the fumble, you can say it was this, but they didn't, I mean, and their offense was so vanilla. It was just, you know, the game was perfectly set. Now, obviously, Clemson had their people missing as well, with Xavier not being there, and obviously he would have had a huge impact in the game, but I don't know. Here we are again, and we're listing all the excuses.
No, you're right.
So the question is, it might be a good thing for Will to write on this week, to go back and look at these. Clemson leads the nation in turnover and fumbles, apparently.
Right.
A lot of those, as we know, have been probably inside the 5-yard line or the 10-yard line.
Cape Klubnik leads 7.
So, you know, it's just, they keep talking about it. Dabo even gave Becky from his radio show a shout out in the press conference today, and I heard Becky last night just saying, you know, what are you doing? I know you're doing stuff. I know you see you do practicing drills where you're trying to hit the people with the broomstick with the ball and all that. And she's like, maybe you need to get these guys to just start carrying the football to class and sleeping with the football. And
maybe so.
I mean, the challenge is, I guess the frustrating thing for the players and the team and the fans is, you know, it's been a problem since the Duke game.
It's been a problem since it hadn't gotten better, and the goal is to get better as the season goes along.
We're getting ready to go to game number 8.
Game 8
on the season. So we're,
So, okay, look at it this way. The Duke game, you had first and goal, or you had at least a goal to go situation at the 1-yard line twice against Duke, and you didn't score both times. You had a goal to go situation twice at the 1-yard line against Miami, and you didn't score either time either. So it's like, what is the problem? Why in the world are you having these issues when you get down inside the 5-yard line? And you mentioned there's another situation where they've had other situations during the season where, you know, it happened one time. So they've had at least, I would say, and I have to go back and look at it definitely, but I would say in their 7 games, I think 5 games they've had this situation happen. Why? I mean, I asked, you know, Will Putnam about it the other day, and I said, Will, what do you think is causing this? This is before you came back out. You were doing the Dabo interview at the time. And Will says that he thinks it's a situation where it's in their minds. He's like, we practice it, and we practice it and practice it. And he says, usually when you do practice, it should be, the reason you practice is so it just comes to you naturally in the game. And he's like, when you start thinking, that's when you have a problem. He says, I just think we're all thinking too much. He said, we just got to stop thinking. He said, the problem is I don't know how to do that.
Well, and at some point, the same players keep making the same mistakes. You need to try different players.
Maybe so.
If you're 8 games into the season and it's been a problem since game 1 and you haven't gotten it fixed, you keep rolling out the same players and all of that.
Who do you try? You put Dominique in there at running back? I mean, because the 2 running backs, both of them done it.
Well, and Dabo was asked today about Maffa and, should maybe in that situation, should Clemson be using the bigger back instead of Shipley? Now, Shipley is tough. That's what he is he's tough.
Yes, he is.
But, obviously steal the wheel. And what do most NFL teams do in that situation?
Well, they do the tush push now.
They do the tush push. But if they have multiple running backs, you typically see the bigger back
to the bigger back in the goal line situations.
Right.
Yeah. They give it to Najee Harris, just to answer your question.
Yeah.
That's the Steelers do. Yeah.
So, Clemson, there's a very big difference between those two from a physical characteristic standpoint. Now, as Dabo said today, defending that, he's like, well, Maffa fumbled in that first game.
He fumbled too.
He had his fumble and all that, and he did.
He's telling the truth. By the way, Maffa fumbled the other day. Remember when they took Shipley out that next series and Maffa came in? Maffa's first carry, he fumbled the ball. And so what happened? Dabo took him right out of the game. It's like, so Dabo's like, what can I do? He's fumbling too. They're both fumbling.
It's like, maybe you have to get the 13th guy. I don't know, but it's not fixed. It's not, it's cost Clemson a chance to have a special season. Dabo's talked a lot about this team and how talented he thinks this team is. But, obviously when you're 4-3, the questions are harder on your radio show. The questions are harder in your Tuesday press conference. Today, Dabo's talked a lot about, how he thinks this team has the players on it that, Clemson's going to win another championship.
Yeah.
And he was asked about that today. And, he talked about how great the freshman class was and this and that and how great this junior class was. And he was mentioning guys like Trotter and Carter. And I got news for you. Trotter and Carter, they're not going to be here next year.
That's what I was saying.
So, okay.
Makuba, probably not going to be here next year.
I mean, there's some guys that are major contributors right now that are not going to be here.
Yeah.
And
you're right.
It's a concerning time. I mean, I think there is a lot of talent on the team, but the question is there enough talent for Clemson to be elite? And right now, they're not even talking about being elite. It's where are they in the ACC rankings right now?
8th
place.
Yeah, you know who's ranked ahead of them?
Boston College.
Yep. Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech.
So, a long ways from that conversation of elite and playoffs. And Dabo's done wonderful things here, and the program's done wonderful things. The concern is from the fans and others is, are you going to be able to get back to being elite or not?
Right.
And Dabo's very confident that they will be, and I think a lot of others are, I guess, nervous on whether that's going to happen or not.
Yeah, and hey, look, Dabo's supposed to be confident. It's his job to be. You don't want your head coach coming out there just running his hands through his hair and like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You don't want to see that. You want to see him be confident. No matter how much of you guys hate seeing it or thinking he's making excuses and all. What else do you want to be? You don't want him to be negative either. And I think Dabo's doing the best he can, and I think there is part of him that believes that they have the pieces in place to get back to where they need to be. But we also know there's things they don't have in place that they need to get established to get back up there. And I think that's where I think fans are concerned a little bit. And, of course, my column brought a little bit of that out the other day, and I think that kind of stirred up some things, because we don't know what the future holds for this program right now. I think there is a question mark with this program, and we'll see how it goes going forward. But I think this next year is going to tell us a lot about that. It's going to answer all those questions.
No, it is, and the next couple of months are going to answer some of those questions.
Yeah.
But hopefully the answers are there, and Dabo did things at Clemson that nobody ever thought he could do.
And you give him credit for that.
It's a different world, though.
It is.
We're in the NIL world. We're in the transfer portal world, and since that world has been the governing rules for college football, Clemson has not done.
Clemson not done well. They went 10-2. 10-3, 11-3, and now they're 4-3 since the NIL and the transfer portal world began.
That's exactly right.
So,
Other players this week?
Yeah, so I wasn't at it, but I watched Kate Klubnik's interview, and I tell you what, now I'm going to say this about him, and I hope fans are appreciating Kate Klubnik. He talked to us on Saturday night, and trust me, I've seen guys that wouldn't talk to us before after a game like that, especially when they made the mistake. And Kate came out and owned it, was very upfront, explained his situation. I was very impressed with him the other night. And then I was even more impressed. He came back on Monday and spoke to the media again and had to answer some of those same questions again. And he had a good attitude about it. He had a smile on his face at times. I'll tell you, I'm impressed with the young man from that standpoint. He deserves credit because it's not easy, Robert, getting in front of us media people and we're asking these questions. And he's 20 years old, and he could have easily said no to Ross about coming. He could have said no. Trust me, people.
And it took him a long time to come out after the game.
It did.
But he came out.
But he came out.
Said, and he manned up and faced it. And you could tell just how disappointed he is. And, that's the thing the fans forget is nobody, the players want to win a lot more than the fans want to win.
Absolutely.
It's hard for the fans to believe sometimes, but they're the ones that put all the hard work in. The coaches put the hard work in, so nobody wants to win more than them. And nobody's more disappointed in a loss than the guys on the team.
Exactly. And so I give him credit for that. So I thought his interview was really good. I was really impressed with him yesterday. And then today we got to speak to Adam Randall. It's the first time I remember talking to Adam Randall. He might have come up another time when you were there. But I was really impressed with him. What a sharp young man he is. Just very sharp. Talked about his brother and that relationship. I enjoyed that. He talked about his injury and coming back from it. And then also, one thing he said, going off of Dabo, he says, listen, he said, I guarantee you guys, if we win the turnover battle these next 5 games, he says, we're going to go 5-0. So he says, I guarantee you that. So that was pretty interesting that he guaranteed it. If they win the turnover battle, they're going to win every single one of these games. We'll see. I think Notre Dame is a game that I think, to me, is the toughest game still for them. I know some people might say North Carolina too, but I'm concerned about the South Carolina game too.
Every game has a challenge.
This week, yes.
You play like you did against Miami, and you play. Not to forget, they didn't play with the 2 against Wake Forest.
If they play like they did against Florida State and Syracuse, they're going to be fine. I agree with that. But we haven't seen that now for a couple of weeks. We've seen the other, and it's gotten worse. Didn't look good against Wake Forest, and it got worse against Miami. So, you're seeing a digression, not a rise. And so we'll see if they get better. But, yeah.
Well, and we will be up there in Raleigh, Carter Finley Stadium for the 2 o'clock game on the CW. Dabo had to ask people today, what the heck's the CW? What channel is that? And so that tells you a little bit about where Clemson football is right now. We're playing a 2 o'clock game on the CW. So Clemson's got to get better. Big test of the mental game for the Tigers and how people handle things now that all the goals are pretty much out the window. But we'll be there. We'll have everything covered for you. Hopefully this will be a better weekend and start to feel better about the Tigers and the future. Stay tuned to Clemson Insider for the most complete coverage of Clemson football.
Hey Tiger fans, make sure you go follow the Clemson Insider for the best coverage of Clemson athletics and recruiting. Nobody does it better.